When I read my mom the original title, The Garden of Eden, the First Communist State, what it means for AI, she gave me a look that said, Isaac, I don't know how I actually expect you to make a coherent argument for the Garden of Eden, communism, and AI. And what could I say except, trust me. So I make the same claim again. Trust me. Come, let us reason. My main claim in this video is that the Garden of Eden was the first communist state. It was actually the only ever communist state because it was the only government or state that fulfilled all the ideals of communism and not just like was an actual communist government, right? To prove my point, I asked ChatGPT, give me the ideals of communism, describe to me the ideals of communism. And I think it would be fair to say if the Garden of Eden is able to fulfill each of the ideals, then it should be considered communist, and my claim would be true. So, to start off, let's look at the first ideal. The first ideal we have is a classless society. There was no classes in Eden, and if Eden were to continue on, and Adam and Eve would have had kids, there would have been no classes either. So I think we can say first one down. The second and third ideals given to me were basically the same, so I'll just put them together. There was abolition of private property, and that was like the economic sense, and collective ownership. And that couldn't be more true than the Garden of Eden. The fourth one, to each according to his ability, to each according to his need, that was kind of the communist motto, and that rings the bell. When I read Genesis chapter 2, verse 16, it sounds very similar. This is older English, so stick with me. It sounds a little different, but you'll see. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. To dress it, to keep it, it's just to work in it, right? It's basically saying, you do your work, get what you need. The communist model, to each according to his ability, to each according to his need. So definitely fulfills the fourth requirement. Fifth requirement is no state or government, and there was no state or government. It was just man and his union with God. It fulfills the fifth requirement. And sixth one is universal cooperation. It was universal cooperation until Eve took the fruit, and that the very transgression of one of the six laws or the six ideals given was the end of the communist state, the end of Eden. So I think it's fair to say, is according to ChatGPT, that Eden really was the first communist state. Okay, so you believe me, the Garden of Eden was the first communist state, the only one really. But then that begs the question, why does that matter? And what does it have to do with AI? You see, the reason why it matters is because it was God's plan A for this earth, for humanity. And yet this plan A, right? Think of North Korea and China and so of the Soviet Union and of course and Cuba, all the horror stories that we know here and the trauma and the deaths that have occurred, and we are rightly has a bad reputation, and nobody wants to live in a communist state unless they know any better, right? Yet what we see here and the conclusion we can make from this is that in the case of humanity, the downfall is never a systematic failure. Rather, it is a result of human nature. And see, that's where the kick comes in. Because you can have the perfect system, the ideal situations, and the reality is that never occurs. Exactly, and this is exactly my point. The ideal situation for good is the ideal situation for bad. In a world where the greatest good is possible, that also means the greatest evil is possible. And that's part of why, we have sin and the suffering and the sword, but that's not the point of this video. Take social media. You would have your friends and then you just have to go to high school or you would never see them again. It's like, oh no, well, how would I keep up with them? And then social media comes along. Oh my goodness, I can keep up with my friends. Like, look how amazing that is. But nobody talks about that anymore. What we talk about is the sexual predators on the apps, the depression and anxiety rates, the way that kids are systematically comparing themselves and then they're never enough. Now, the mental health crisis because of it, and what it's doing to our brains, the overstimulation, all the dopamine, right? A good, great idea But because we live on planet Earth with selfish humans, we're always going to be taken advantage of. That's the problem. The best ideas are always going to be corrupted by humanity. Every step that could be a right step in the direction towards utopia is actually a step in the wrong direction. These great things put them in, they fall into the wrong hands, and havoc happens. The idea of social media. Oh no, I'm never going to see my friends again. Um, and how am I going to keep up with them? Like, well, you just didn't think about it. It was just a sad reality. Oh shoot. Well, and then Facebook comes along. Mark Zuckerberg's like, look, I have the idea. Yeah, I have the answer to your problem. But nobody ever talks about how Mark Zuckerberg answered our problem. What we do talk about now is the anxiety and depression rates among children, and how we systematically, me as a child, I don't have social media, thank God, but how my generation systematically compares ourselves, and what it's doing to our mental health. The sexual predators online, you know, people selling their bodies. Like, we don't talk about the good. We only talk about the bad, because any good thing will be corrupted by human nature. It's the sad reality. We see that with the internet, and we see that with AI. This is probably, for me, I think, the closest step we've ever gotten to a utopia, to the perfect world. The efficiency, the speed, the knowledge for everybody. Like, that's like, wow, like, isn't that like the philosopher's dream? Um, so it's the dream for the bad guy. And so even though it was a good idea, it is a good idea. Um, it might very well be the worst thing that has ever happened to humanity.